Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to talk about printing money.
Legally, I hope.
Yes, legally. And no, I don't mean counterfeiting, and I definitely don't mean investing in whatever the latest speculative crypto bubble is.
Right.
I mean literally printing value out of thin air using absolutely nothing but the 26 letters of the alphabet.
It really sounds like a magic trick when you phrase it that way.
Well, looking at the stack of research we have today, and we are covering a lot of ground here for you guys, from behavioral economics to brand narrative to
Mm.
some really heavy neuromarketing studies, it does feel a bit like magic. But it's not magic, is it? It's engineering. We are talking about the currency of words.
We are. And the core thesis across all these sources we've got is it's pretty radical if you actually stop to think about it.
How so?
Well, we usually think of words as descriptors. You have a thing, like a product, a service, a person, and you use words to just describe the thing. The thing is the reality, and the words are just the label you slap on it.
But the research is saying that's backward.
Completely backward. The sources argue that in the modern economy, the words actually are the product. Or at the very least, they determine the value of the product so definitively that the physical object is almost secondary.
You know, this reminds me of that old idea of fiat currency.
Oh, yeah?
Like a dollar bill is just a piece of cotton linen blend. It has zero intrinsic value. You can't eat it. You can't build a house with it. It only has value because the government says, this is worth $1, and we all just agree to it.
Exactly. It's value by decree. And in business, you are the central bank. You get to issue the decree. You get to decide if your product is a commodity or a luxury based purely on the linguistic framework you wrap around it.
Right.
But, and this is a big but,
Hmm.
you still have to follow the laws of the market. You can't just say, this rock is worth $1 million if the underlying story doesn't support it.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how to write that story. We want to unpack the silent question that every brand is answering. We're going to look at the neuroscience of why some words make you reach for your wallet while others just make you cringe.
Yes.
And hopefully by the end of this deep dive, give you a way to audit your own language. Because if you are using cheap words to sell a premium idea, you are literally burning cash.
And it is happening everywhere. I was reading through some listener feedback from our previous topics, and a lot of you out there are entrepreneurs or creators. You're building things, and the biggest mistake I see, and the sources completely confirm this, is that you build a Ferrari engine, and then you put it in a beige sedan
A beige sedan.
because you're afraid to use bold language.
That is a tragic image, a Ferrari engine and a beige sedan. Okay, let's get into the first big concept from the research, which is this idea of the silent question.
The silent question. This is essentially the background radiation of every single commercial interaction.
The premise here is that every brand, whether they're doing it consciously or not, is constantly answering one specific thing, which is, who is this for?
Right. And it's not a question the customer actually asks out loud.
No, of course not.
You don't walk into a store and shout, "Excuse me, is this establishment designed for my specific demographic?"
That would be weird.
Very weird. It's a felt sense. It happens in milliseconds.
The text mentions that a transaction occurs before the customer even touches the product or sees the packaging or checks the quality. Now that seems physically impossible to me. How can a transaction happen before I even pick the thing up?
Well, you have to redefine transaction. We usually think of it strictly as the exchange of money. But the very first transaction is the exchange of attention and the assignment of value.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about walking into a high-end boutique versus walking into a giant discount warehouse.
Okay, I am picturing it. The boutique smells like, I don't know, sandalwood and money.
Exactly.
And the warehouse smells like cardboard and dust.
Sure, the sensory stuff matters a lot, but look at the signage. Look at the language. In the warehouse, what words do you see?
Clearance, liquidation, BOGO, manager special.
Right, drop price, bulk discount.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is your brain doing in that moment? Your brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. It sees those words, and it immediately categorizes the environment. It says, this is a place where I hunt for bargains. This is a place where value is defined entirely by low cost.
So I'm on guard.
You are primed to look for flaws. You are checking the expiration dates on the boxes. You are looking for dents in the cans.
Because the language told me to be suspicious?
Because the language told you this is a low-stakes, low-value environment. Now let's walk into the boutique. The sign doesn't say clothes for sale.
No, it says something like the autumn collection.
Exactly. It doesn't say manager special. It says curated edition.
Curated. Man, that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It really is. Curated implies an expert. It implies that someone with exquisite taste has already done all the hard work of selecting the absolute best items just for you. So your brain shifts gears entirely.
I'm not looking for dense anymore.
No, you're looking for art. You're looking for identity. The verbal transaction has already taken place. You have tacitly agreed to pay a premium simply because the language established a premium context.
This leads us directly into that really fascinating experiment mentioned in the behavioral economics section of our sources. The luxury versus cheap handbag study. This one really blew my mind because it isolates the variables so perfectly.
It is a classic setup. So imagine you take a factory that makes leather goods. Really high quality. They take a handbag right off the production line.
Yeah.
Beautiful stitching, Italian leather, solid gold hardware. Physically, it is an absolute A-grade product.
Oh, they got the picture.
They put it in a box. Then they take the very next bag off the exact same line, identical in every way, same cow, same thread, same machine, and they put that in the second box.
So we basically have clones.
We have clones. But now they introduce what researchers call the framing effect. On the first box, they put a label that says, budget handbag.
Budget. Ugh. Even just hearing you say it feels heavy.
What actually happens in your brain when you hear the word budget?
Honestly, I immediately think of compromise. I think, okay, it is going to be functional, but the zipper is probably going to stick after a month. The lining is going to rip. It is for holding stuff, not for showing off.
Exactly. You are looking for the utility, but you are anticipating the failure points. You are pricing it in your head based on the raw cost of materials plus a very tiny markup. You're thinking, what is the absolute least I can pay for this utility?
Right. It's a race to the bottom.
Now look at the second box.
Yeah.
Same exact bag. But the label on this one says, handcrafted limited edition leather piece.
Okay, that is a complete 180. Handcrafted makes me picture some guy in an apron in a workshop in Florence, not a factory line, even though we literally just established it came from a factory.
And that is the fiction of branding. Handcrafted implies human attention. Limited edition creates scarcity. It creates FOMO. And then the word piece. That's the really subtle one.
Yeah, piece. It's not a bag. A bag is just a vessel you throw your keys in. A piece is closer to art. It's a piece of the collection.
Precisely. So now, when you look at the stitching on that second bag, you don't think, oh, this is sturdy. You think, this is exquisite. The physical reality of the object has not changed one bit. The photons hitting your retina are exactly the same. But your perception has been fundamentally altered by the linguistic frame.
The text calls this concept, perception precedes evaluation.
That is the golden rule of this entire topic. We really like to think we are rational beings who evaluate data first and then form a perception based on the facts. But the neuroscience clearly shows we do the exact opposite.
We form the perception first.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Based on cues like language. And then we actively scan the data to confirm our own bias.
So if I label it budget, my brain scans for flaws to prove that it's budget. And if I label it handcrafted, my brain scans for quality to prove it's handcrafted.
You are hacking the confirmation bias loop. If the words feel small, the brand feels small. You literally cannot build a premium brand on budget language.
Yeah.
It is structurally impossible.
And I think the undisputed heavyweight champion of this kind of linguistic framing has to be Apple. We have a whole case study in the materials here on their linguistic identity.
Oh, you cannot talk about this topic without talking about Apple. They are the outlier that proves the rule.
It's so interesting because, especially in the early days of the iPhone or even the iPad, the tech press would always just tear them apart on specs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, it doesn't have a replaceable battery. The camera has fewer megapixels than the Nokia. The RAM is lower than the Samsung.
Right. If you were judging purely on the numbers, the high specification aluminum smartphone metrics, Apple often lost on paper. But Apple never fought on that battlefield.
They just completely refused to use the enemy's language.
They created their own language entirely. Look at the iPad launch in 2010. I actually went back and watched the original keynote for this deep dive. Steve Jobs walks out on stage. He does not say, here is a tablet computer with a 9.7-inch screen.
Which is exactly what Dell or HP would have said.
Exactly. Introducing the Slate 5000, it's boring. It's a commodity. Jobs walks out and calls it a magical and revolutionary device.
Magical. I mean, the audacity to use that specific word in a technology presentation. Magic is fairy tales. It is fundamentally distinct from science.
But think about what magic does to the consumer's expectations. If I sell you a computer, you expect it to crash eventually. You expect to have to manage files. You expect complexity and frustration.
Right.
But if I sell you magic, I am promising that the technology will disappear. I am promising that it will just work seamlessly. It suspends your disbelief.
It also puts them in a category of one. You can compare a tablet to another tablet. You can line up the spec sheets. But you cannot compare Magic to a spec sheet.
Exactly. You can't comparison shop against Magic. And notice all the other words they constantly use. Crafted, designed, pro.
Pro is a really funny one because they attach it to things that aren't actually for professionals. I mean, my mom has an iPhone Pro. She uses it to play Candy Crush and take blurry photos of the dog. She is not editing 4K video on the fly.
But she feels like a pro when she uses it.
Yeah.
That's the identity piece. Pro doesn't describe the hardware capability as much as it describes the user's aspiration. Apple is selling you the person you want to be. They use very minimal language, highly controlled adjectives, and just absolute confidence to sell an identity.
It really is the confidence that strikes me. They never over-explain anything.
Confidence is brevity. Insecurity is complexity. When you see a brand's website that has 10 dense paragraphs explaining why their product is good, that is insecurity. That is the brand pleading with you to believe them.
And Apple just says, this is iPhone, it's titanium, boom.
Titanium, that was their big word recently. Just the word itself sounds expensive. It sounds like aerospace engineering.
It sounds indestructible. So the big takeaway here is that words create the container for the value. If you describe your product as sturdy and reliable, you are actively positioning yourself in the hardware aisle. If you describe it as crafted and essential, you are positioning yourself in the boutique. And the boutique gets to charge 10 times more.
Which brings us to the actual dollars and cents of it all. Segment 2 is all about words as value multipliers.
Right, because I want to push back on this a little bit. Is it really just about feeling fancy? Or does this actually translate to cold, hard cash for the business?
It translates directly to cash.
Yeah.
We have a source here that breaks down the economics of phrasing, specifically looking at the digital product space, and it presents what they call the uncomfortable truth.
I love an uncomfortable truth. Lay it on me.
The scenario involves two creators. Let's just call them Creator A and Creator B. They both have the exact same level of expertise. Let's say they are experts in, I don't know, client acquisition for freelancers.
Okay, a very painful problem for a lot of people.
Huge problem. So Creator A sits down and writes out everything they know. They make a PDF document, and they title it An eBook About Marketing Strategies.
An e-book about marketing strategies. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm already asleep. That sounds like homework. It sounds like something I would find in a dusty corporate library.
And how much is an ebook worth? What is the market anchor in your mind for that specific word?
I mean, Amazon Kindle prices, $9.99, maybe $27 if it's super specialized.
Exactly. The word ebook anchors the price to a commodity. It is a digital file. It's cheap to produce, so it should be cheap to buy. So Creator A really struggles to sell it for 27 bucks.
Okay, makes sense.
Now Creator B, same exact expertise,
Yeah.
same chapters,
Mhm.
literally the same words inside the document, but they do not call it an ebook. They title it a 30-day client acquisition system for creative founders,
Okay, now I'm listening.
and they sell it for $297
$287 for the same PDF.
for a system.
That is a 10x multiplier. That is insane. But let's play devil's advocate here. Is it really just the words, or is it what the words imply about the effort put into it?
It's what the words trigger in the buyer's mind. Let's actually break down that title using the formula from the source material. It's mechanism plus timeline plus identity.
Okay, let's start with mechanism. That's the system part.
Right. Ebook implies raw information. You have to read it, process it, figure out how to apply it to your specific situation. It's work. System implies a machine. You put a little effort in, and you get guaranteed results out. It relieves the buyer of the cognitive load. You aren't buying a book to read. You are buying a result to implement.
Got it. And the timeline, that's the 30-day part.
Exactly. Marketing strategies is endless. It is a vague, ongoing nightmare for a freelancer. 30 days is a hard constraint. It promises a definitive end to the suffering. It tells me I only have to focus on this pain point for 1 month, and then it's solved.
And finally, identity for creative founders.
This is the most crucial part. Marketing is for everyone. Creative Founders is for me. It flatters the buyer. It tells them, this isn't for those boring corporate suits and cubicles. This is for the artists who are building empires. It creates an exclusive tribe.
So by shifting from commodity information to targeted transformation, you literally move the decimal point on your pricing.
You move the decimal point. Information is incredibly cheap nowadays. Transformation is expensive. If you sell information, you are directly competing with a free Google search. If you sell transformation, You are competing with the pain of the problem itself. And people will pay a lot of money to make a painful problem go away.
This connects really deeply to the neuromarketing section of our research, because it is not just about these big, flashy product titles. It is about the specific, everyday words we use and how they physically light up the brain.
Yes, we really have to get into the biology here. This
Yeah.
isn't just marketing fluff or theory. There are fMRI studies, functional magnetic resonance imaging, that show exactly what happens inside the skull when we hear certain words.
Tell us about that University of London study regarding labeling.
This one is fascinating. They put participants in an fMRI machine and showed them various products. When they used generic, highly functional descriptors, words like container or salty or red, the brain activity was heavily concentrated in the calculation centers, specifically the parietal lobe.
So the brain is just doing math.
Literally doing math. It is asking, is this worth the cost? What is the baseline utility of this object? It's a very cold, rational assessment.
And what happened when they changed the labels?
When they used sensory or emotional labels instead, words like velvety, aromatic, robust, the brain activity completely shifted over to the orbitofrontal cortex.
Which does what exactly?
That is the reward center. That is the pleasure center. That is where dopamine lives. So simply by changing the adjective on the label, you are physically rerouting the electrical signal in the customer's head. You are moving them from asking, is this worth it, which is calculation, to stating, I want this, which is desire.
That is wild. You are entirely bypassing the accountant in the brain and speaking directly to the hedonist.
Exactly. And we see this in everyday word pairs all the time. Let's actually do a quick this versus that to show how it works.
Okay, hit me. Let's do it.
Cheap versus economical.
Cheap hurts. Cheap feels like a risk. If I buy cheap tires, I am going to crash my car on the highway. Economical feels smart. It feels prudent, like I am hacking the system and making a wise financial choice.
Right. Cheap triggers loss aversion. Economical triggers competency. How about expensive versus premium?
Expensive is all about the pain of paying. It's looking at the receipt and just wincing. Premium is about the status I get after I pay. It's getting past the velvet rope.
Very true. Used versus pre-owned.
Oh, this is the classic used car dealer trick. Used smells like stale cigarettes and has high mileage. Pre-owned. Oh, well, actually, what is the physical difference?
There's absolutely no difference in the car. It's the same vehicle.
Yeah.
But pre-owned implies stewardship. It implies that the previous owner respected it and just held on to it for you. It completely removes the ick factor of using someone else's discard.
And here is one for all the listeners out there building their own things right now. Small business versus independent brand.
This is a huge one for creators. Small business is a diminutive. It sounds cute. It sounds like a weekend hobby. Like, oh, I'm going to go support this struggling small business. It frames the transaction as charity.
Whereas independent brand sounds defiant.
It sounds like a very deliberate choice. It sounds punk rock. We are independent. We answer to no one but our customers. It activates the community and belonging triggers in the brain. People want to support an independent brand because it aligns with their own values. They support a small business because they feel sorry for it.
That is such a crucial distinction. You do not want pity sales. You want identity sales.
Because pity does not scale.
Yeah.
Identity scales infinitely.
Which leads us perfectly into segment 3, the power of exclusion. Because if we are talking about building an identity, we have to talk about who is explicitly not invited to the party.
This is hands down the hardest part for most people to accept. We are biologically wired to be people pleasers. We want everyone to like us and buy our stuff.
We have something for everyone, all ages, all stages.
Which is the absolute kiss of death in branding. The source material refers to this as magnetism through rejection.
Which sounds incredibly aggressive.
It should be aggressive.
Yeah.
The basic physics of a magnet require a north pole and a south pole. If you do not repel anyone, you cannot attract anyone. You are just a dead lump of metal.
Let's look at the planner example from the text. I think this illustrates it perfectly.
Okay, let's do it. Imagine a physical paper planner. Option A's marketing says, this planner helps you stay organized.
Okay. Who is that for?
Everyone. It's for students, moms, CEOs, my grandma. It is purely functional. It's vanilla. And because it is for everyone, no one feels a burning, urgent desire to buy it. It is just another commodity on the shelf.
And what about option B?
Option B says, for founders building empires before 8 a.m.
Oof. Okay. That has teeth.
It creates an immediate, sharp split in the audience. If you are a college student who likes to sleep until noon, or if you are someone who deeply prioritizes work-life balance and hates hustle culture, You read that and you are actively repelled. You think, ew, that is not for me. That sounds toxic.
But if I am that person, if I am up at 5 in the morning grinding on my startup,
You feel seen. You feel a massive rush of validation. You think, finally, someone actually understands my life. This isn't just a planner. This is a weapon for my daily war. That creates fierce loyalty.
so the goal isn't to get the maximum number of eyeballs on your product, it's to get the maximum number of hearts.
Exactly. Mass language might attract fleeting attention, maybe. But specific language attracts deep loyalty. In the long run, loyalty is the only currency that actually matters, because loyal customers do not look at the price tag.
But those businesses are terrified of this. They default to what the text calls weak language, the invisible list.
Oh, the invisible list. You see this everywhere, on almost every corporate website. Quality products at great prices. We care about our customers. Your satisfaction is our priority.
Why do we hate these so much? I mean, they sound nice enough.
They sound nice, but they mean absolutely nothing. They are table stakes. Of course you care about your customers. Of course you want them to be satisfied. Stating it so explicitly actually makes you sound defensive and amateurish.
It's just filler text.
It's actually worse than filler. It is camouflage. When a consumer reads quality products at great prices, their brain just glosses right over it. It is white noise. It lacks texture. It lacks voice. It lacks conviction.
So who in the real world did this right? Who broke that professional corporate mold?
Glossier is the perfect case study here. Think about the beauty industry maybe 10 or 15 years ago. It was completely dominated by the giants. L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, Clinique.
Right, and their tone was always very authoritative. It was like, we are the scientists in the lab coats. Here's the clinical formula. Look like this airbrushed model.
Exactly. It was a broadcast model. Top down. We speak, you listen. Then Glossier came along and completely inverted the model. Their copies, their Instagram captions, their product descriptions didn't sound like a giant corporation at all. It sounded like your cool friend texting you from the bathroom.
Hey, skin looks good today.
Exactly that. It was highly conversational. It was peer-to-peer. They used emojis before brands did that. They used lowercase letters intentionally. They used the actual slang of their specific audience.
And that tone itself was the positioning.
Tone is positioning. They didn't have to write some long manifesto saying, we are a brand for the modern digital native woman. The way they spoke inherently signaled that. If you were an older demographic looking for clinical anti-aging solutions, Glossier felt way too casual, too unserious. Good. That is exclusion working as intended. But for their specific tribe, it was incredibly magnetic.
So tone is positioning. I think that is a sticky note for the listeners right there. It is not just what you say. It's the attitude and the posture you say it with.
Absolutely. The posture matters just as much as the vocabulary.
Okay, we have looked at the macro strategy. Now I want to zoom way in, like microscope level. Segment 4 is all about microcopy.
The UX of text. This is where things get really precise.
First, just define microcopy for us, because I'm sure most people probably haven't even heard the term.
Microcopy is the text you barely even notice you're reading. It's the few words on the buttons. It's the checkout prompts, the error messages, the forgot password email, the little legal disclaimers at the bottom of a form.
Basically all the boring stuff.
The stuff people think is purely functional. But the sources argue that microcopy actually carries massive emotional weight because it almost always happens at the exact point of friction.
What do you mean by friction?
When you are hovering your mouse about to click buy, that is a high-friction moment. You're about to part with your hard-earned money. Your brain is hesitating. The specific words on that button can either grease the wheels and help you through, or throw sand in the gears and make you abandon the cart.
Let's look at the emotional temperature check examples from the research. First one, buy now.
Buy now is entirely transactional. It explicitly reminds you of the cost. It's a command. Hand over the cash.
Versus start your transformation.
That phrase reminds you of the benefit you're seeking. It implies a journey. It focuses your attention on the future outcome, not the present pain of paying.
How about add to cart versus reserve yours?
Add to cart is just dull. It's digital bureaucracy. Reserve yours. Yours triggers loss aversion and a sense of ownership. It subtly implies the item is already yours. You just need to claim it before someone else takes it away from you.
It's amazing how changing just 2 words on a tiny button can completely double conversion rates.
It happens all the time in tech. I've personally seen A/B tests where changing the word submit to get my free guide increased clicks by 40%. Because honestly, nobody wants to submit. Submission feels weak. Get is active. Get implies receiving a gift.
And we really can't talk about microcopy without talking about the three most famous words in advertising history, the words that arguably built a global empire.
Nike.
Just do it.
It is the ultimate microstatement. And there is a truly fascinating kind of dark backstory here that most people don't know. Do you know where that specific phrase actually came from?
I always just assumed some high-paid copywriter in a fancy Madison Avenue boardroom came up with it.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
Dan Wheaton, the ad executive, actually pulled it from the final words of Gary Gilmore.
Wait, the murderer!
Yes, the convicted murderer on death row. Right before he was executed by firing squad in Utah in 1977, his last words were, "Let's do it." Whedon remembered that years later and tweaked it to, "Just do it."
That is incredibly dark, but also, you have to admit, incredibly visceral.
It is entirely primal, and that is exactly why it works so well. Look at the syntax of it. 3 words. Monosyllabic. Command tone.
There's no please, there's no try your best.
No hesitation. No softness whatsoever. It doesn't describe the shoes at all. It doesn't say just wear these comfortable sneakers.
No, it has nothing to do with the product features.
It describes a mindset. It speaks directly to the internal battle every single athlete faces every day. The battle against laziness. The battle against the alarm clock going off at 5 in the morning. The battle against the burning pain in your lungs. Just do it. It validates the struggle and commands you to overcome it in 3 words.
And that somehow sells millions of shoes.
That sells identity. When you wear Nike apparel, you aren't just wearing rubber and foam. You are wearing that just do it spirit. You are literally wearing the identity of someone who overcomes obstacles.
It's amazing proof that you don't need more words to add value. You just need the right words.
Brevity is leverage. The shorter the distance between the idea and the emotion, the higher the impact will be.
But, and here's the twist we need to cover, Segment 5 warns us heavily about the dangers of wielding this kind of power, the ethical responsibility of language.
Right. Because if we accept the premise that language creates reality and that it activates reward centers in the brain and that it can entirely bypass logical processing, that is a serious superpower. And like any superpower, it can absolutely be abused.
The source material explicitly calls it the double-edged sword. Words can inspire, but they can just as easily manipulate.
They can inflate value artificially. They can deceive. We see this constantly with false scarcity tactics online.
Oh, this drives me absolutely crazy. You go to a website and it says, only 2 spots left, and it's for a digital course.
Right. It's a digital file on a server. There is literally infinite inventory. That is just a blatant lie.
Or the evergreen timer trick. You land on a sales page, and there's a huge clock ticking down saying, offer expires in 15 minutes, and then you refresh the page tomorrow, and the timer has magically reset to 15 minutes.
That is using the psychological trigger of urgency, which is a totally valid linguistic tool when true, without the actual reality of urgency.
And what actually happens to a brand when they do that long term?
The trust bank goes completely bankrupt. We call it trust collapse. It might work once. You might trick me into buying out of panic today. But once I realize that timer was fake, I will never, ever believe another word your brand says.
The text calls this linguistic integrity.
That's the perfect term for it. Long-term, sustainable brands require absolute linguistic integrity. The verbal framing must match the physical reality. You can use premium words all day long, but the product must actually be a premium experience when it arrives.
So if I call my ebook a 30-day system, it better actually function like a system. If I open it up and it's just a rambling rant about marketing theory, I am going to immediately ask for a refund.
Exactly. You cannot use these linguistic tools to just put lipstick on a pig. Use them to make sure the diamond you are selling actually looks and feels like a diamond. The ultimate goal is accuracy of value, not the artificial inflation of value.
Okay, we've covered the theory, the neuroscience, the historical examples, and the ethics. Now, I really want to get practical for the listeners. Segment 6 is the listener audit.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
If you are listening right now, whether you are a creator, an entrepreneur, or even just someone trying to polish up your LinkedIn profile to get a better job, we want you to audit your linguistic assets.
And we can actually do this live. Let's role play a few before and afters to show how it's done.
Let's do it. I will give you the bad version, the generic, weak language version, and you give me the deep dive rewrite on the spot.
Challenge accepted. Let's go.
Okay, first one. An Instagram bio for a fitness coach. The current bio is, I help people get fit and healthy. DM for info.
Oof. Okay, people is way too generic. Fit and healthy is vague and overused. DM for info is incredibly passive.
Fix it.
Okay. Helping busy dads reclaim their athletic bodies without giving up pizza. The 90-day dad bod protocol starts Monday.
Boom. That is night and day. Specific audience, busy dads, specific pain point, they don't want to give up pizza, specific result, athletic body, specific mechanism, the protocol.
And notice the intentional exclusion there.
Oh.
If you aren't a dad, or if you want to be a competitive bodybuilder who eats only boiled chicken and broccoli, this coaching is not for you.
Okay, next one. A website headline for a freelance graphic designer. Current headline, beautiful design solutions for your business.
Beautiful is entirely subjective. Solutions is pure corporate jargon. Business is way too broad. It's the invisible list again.
Rewrite it.
Strategic branding for fintech startups raising Series A. Look like $1 billion before you make it.
Whoa, that is hyper-specific.
It creates an immediate, undeniable value proposition. I'm not just making your logo pretty, I am actively helping you raise millions of dollars. That specific designer can easily charge $20,000 for a project. The beautiful design person is stuck charging $500 on Fiverr.
Okay, one more. A product title for an online knitting pattern. Current title, knitting pattern for scarf.
Tragic. Just tragic.
Fix it.
The Weekend Escape Chunky Knit Scarf. Beginner-friendly. Finished in under 4 hours.
I don't even knit, and I kind of want to buy that.
Sure.
Weekend Escape sells the cozy feeling. Finished in under 4 hours directly overcomes the main objection, which is that knitting takes too long.
See? It is not magic. It is engineering. You are precisely engineering the perception of value using words.
The source material wraps up with this really great concept of the first prototype.
I love this idea. We usually think the prototype is the physical beta version of the software, or the 3D printed mock-up of the product. But the source argues that language itself is actually the very first prototype of any business.
Because the words almost always exist before the thing exists.
Exactly. You pitch the idea to investors before you build it. You write the landing page copy before the digital course is even finished recording.
So if you can't describe it clearly and compellingly from day one,
You probably don't have a clear and compelling business yet. If you find yourself constantly relying on generic words like, we empower users, or we provide innovative solutions, it usually just means you haven't actually figured out what you do yet.
clarity is confidence. And as we have established today, confidence is premium.
If you fumble the words, the customer subconsciously assumes you will fumble the product. But if the words are precise, sharp, and confident, they assume the product is going to be flawless.
It's a mirror.
It's the skeleton. The copy holds the entire business up.
This has been, well, I am going to use a premium word here. This has been illuminating.
I like it. Very premium.
We started with the silent question, who is this for? We looked at how words act as a brutal filter.
We saw exactly how perception precedes evaluation with the handbag experiment.
We saw how words can literally print money, like the $27 ebook versus the $297 system.
We discussed the incredible power of exclusion, repelling the wrong people to magnetize the right ones.
We geeked out on the dark history of just do it and the neuromarketing behind the buy button.
And we warned about the ethical dangers of writing linguistic checks that your physical product cannot cash.
It all comes back to that one core idea. Branding isn't just visual. The very first transaction is always verbal.
Always verbal.
So, here is the final provocative thought for you to take with you today. We know language is currency. We know it has tangible value, so the question you have to ask yourself is, are you printing your own money through precise, confident framing? Or are you actively devaluing your own assets by using the invisible, weak language of the masses?
Are you a budget handbag or a handcrafted piece? The physical product might be exactly the same. The choice of how it's valued is entirely yours.
Spend your words wisely. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Catch you next time.